Now, we've been talking about the Fed in the last couple of weeks and how Trump is coming out and criticizing the Fed, saying that the Fed is raising rates too rapidly. This is not a good thing. Now, this is all part of the plan. And we know that the Fed is the biggest threat to the American people. And a little bit later in this report, we're going to be talking about what Trump came out and said, and you can tell that he is going after the Fed. That this entire plan has been set up for a very long time, and now they're pushing the agenda forward to remove the Fed, remove the deep state, and reset the entire economic system. Not just the economic system, but reset the economic system, the government system, the entire world system. And we can see that we are headed in this direction. And what's very interesting is that the global economy is breaking down very, very rapidly. I mean, we're looking at many different indicators. Yes, if you go into the mainstream media, they're going to tell you, the economy's back and everything is great. This is what Trump has been putting out there, and this is what he wants everyone reporting on, except those mainstream media stations that don't want to report on that. But he's forcing everyone to say, to look at him and say, the economy is doing fantastically. He needs everyone to understand that this is what the economy is doing. This way, when the economy breaks down and falls apart, he can turn around and point the finger at the organization that did this. Because he can say, I pumped up the economy. It's fantastic. Look who brought it down. And this is what he's getting prepared to do. But when we look at the global economy, and not just the global economy, but the economy in the U.S., and we look at all the different indicators, we can see that it is breaking down in every different economic sector. Now, we've been following the economy for quite a while, and we've been looking at all different sectors. We've been analyzing them, ripping them apart, showing how it was manipulated. And this was all on purpose. So later on, when everything started to fall apart, we could understand what was going on here. So we could prepare for what was about to happen. And that is the entire system being transitioned to a brand new system. And for those people who think, well, we're never going to go through a transition, we've gone through transitions many, many times before. And if you go back in history, you can see those transitions. Some were a lot worse than others. Most of them had maybe some type of war around it to cover it up. This time, it's going to be a little different, hopefully, because we don't have those individuals in power right now to push a war. And we can see that we are definitely heading for a transition. But when we look at the different economic indicators here in the U.S. and around the world, we see things that are they're definitely falling apart. Look at the global car sales. I mean, this is a global Carmageddon right now, and the wave is spreading across the world. And 2 weeks ago, we talked about how the U.S. had terrible auto sales. Now, we see that China, their passenger car dealerships plunged by 12%. And we see European car sales, they have plunged by 23%. Now, this is not a good sign. And I know there's new tests in Europe and things like that. But once again, it would only happen in certain areas. We're seeing it everywhere. It's all happening at once. Now, if we look in the U.S. and we look at the housing market once again, we see housing starts, they have collapsed in September. They slumped by 5.3%. Permits, they also dropped for the 5th month of the last 6. And the situation in the housing market is collapsing very, very rapidly right now. And why is this happening? Well, you have to remember the Fed is raising interest rates. As you raise interest rates, those people who are making a certain income, who wanted a certain price house, they're thrown out of the market. They can't afford that house anymore. And most of the people say, well, you know something, then I'm just going to wait. And they get themselves out of the market and they don't want to shop around for a house. And as the rates continually move up, well, that's a lot less people who want to buy. If there's a lot less people who want to buy, then lending is going to decline. And if lending is declining, then those people who are selling, they're going to be taking those houses off the market because they don't see traffic. And people are going to ask for the price of the house to come down so they can actually purchase it. I mean, the whole thing is repeating what happened in 2006, 2007, 2008. And right now we can see that single family starts, they dropped by 5.3%. Single units down negative 0.9%. Multifamily starts are crashing by negative 12.9%. And if we look at mortgage applications, and this all fits in together, we can see that mortgage applications, they collapsed by 7.1% last week. And mortgage rates topped around 5%. And when you look at this, you can see over time, since 2011, 2012, we are headed in a downward trajectory, which means applications are declining right now. Bank of America sees it, Wells Fargo sees it, and many other banks see it. And what this means is the economy is breaking down because the housing industry connects to many different other industries: electrical, plumbing, copper, asphalt, cement, lumber, you name it. It connects to all these different areas. And then it connects to home furnishing, durable goods, which is washers, dryers, dishwashers, refrigerators, and things like that. So it's all interconnected. And you can see if one thing goes, everything starts to go. And what has Trump been doing? Trump has been transitioning the U.S. right now. And he's been spending a lot of money. And he's using the central bankers' money. He's using their weapon against them. Think about it. It's almost like what China did. They used this free money that was out there, and they built cities. They built anything they could possibly build and ran up debts. Trump right now is doing the same thing, trying to build up the infrastructure, trying to build up manufacturing, pushing out the globalist deals, making bilateral trade agreements. And in the meantime, the debt is moving up very, very quickly. It's a little bit different than what Obama was doing, because Trump's mission, not just him, but other people that are working with him, is to bring down the central bank system. And you can see that the debt level is around 21.65 trillion, and it is moving up very, very quickly. This whole debt ceiling thing that, Congress put into place, that is a complete and utter joke. Right now, the Trump administration, they notify Congress of their intent to negotiate 3 separate bilateral trade agreements. This is with Britain, the European Union, and Japan. So, U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer said that the administration notified Congress of its intent to negotiate the 3 separate trade agreements. And they're going to do it just like they did the North American Free Trade Agreement with Canada and Mexico. And basically what they're doing right now is they're setting up individual trade agreements where it's not centralized in one place under a centralized system like TPP or NAFTA or anything like that. China actually is doing the same exact thing. Russia's doing the same exact thing, where they're making bilateral trade agreements with each country, completely decentralized. So you can see where they are headed right now. And we talked about how Trump has been contradicting the Fed over and over and over. And he was doing an interview on Fox Business, and he said the following: "My biggest threat is the Fed, because the Fed is raising rates too fast and it's too independent." Take a listen.
My biggest threat is the Fed, because the Fed is raising rates too fast, and it's independent, so I don't speak to him, but I'm not happy with what he's doing because it's going too fast, because you looked at the last inflation numbers, they're very low.
But you put him there. I mean,
I did.
you think about Janet Yellen,
you know
and she was so dovish.
Can I be honest?
Yeah.
I'm not blaming anybody. I put him there. And maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, but I put him there.
What if he gets it wrong?
I put a couple of other people there that I'm not so happy with too. But
If
for
he
the
gets
most
it
part,
wrong.
I'm very happy with people.
You can see he's continually out there, and he just signaled that the Fed is the biggest threat, and he brought in the word independent. They're too independent, so he doesn't know what they're doing. Ah, very interesting. He's laying breadcrumbs out there in the mainstream media, letting the people know that the Fed is a threat and they're too independent. Why would he be doing this? It's almost like what he's doing with Bruce Orr, Nellie Orr, with FISA, when he continually tweets all this stuff out there. He's getting the people used to the idea that the Fed is a problem. These people have done something where, which was illegal, and they've done it with many others. And he's continually putting out this message, letting it seep into the subconscious of people to later say, hey, you know what? Look what the Fed has done. Because when all is said and done, the plan is to blame it on the Fed. Now, he's already said the Fed is a threat. The Fed is too independent. And this is bread for the audit. Think about it. If the economy is doing fantastically and everything is going great, and the Fed is raising rates, and we know what happens when the Fed raises rates, the economy breaks down. Now, when the economy breaks down, and it's already starting to break down, forget about the unemployment numbers, forget about the stock. The stock market has nothing to do with the economy, by the way. Forget about the GDP numbers. Those are all manipulated to make everyone think the economy is doing well. And when you hear all these numbers, they're very easy to manipulate and make them look a lot better than they really are. I mean, all he did was GDP, shifted $1 trillion and made GDP look fantastic. When Obama was president, they went all the way back to 1930, changed the calculation, added in research and development, and then recalculated GDP all the way up to the present day. Unemployment, very easy. Those people who haven't been on an interview for, 4 weeks? You're just not counted. You don't want a job. Of course they want a job. So guess what? You go into a bucket where you're not looking, you don't want a job, you don't want to support your family, you don't want to go on trips, you don't want to live a nice life. You rather have no job whatsoever and recalculate the unemployment numbers without millions and millions of people, and guess what? You get a nice unemployment number. I mean, that's all it is. So those numbers are absolutely meaningless. I mean, go back to 2008. Unemployment was like the lowest we've seen. Stock market was at like 14,000 points, all-time new highs. And there were people looking at the subprime security saying, we have a problem here. These are garbage. But no one wanted to believe, because why? The rating agencies said they were AAA. So if they say they're AAA, that must be the truth. And those people looking at the subprime securities, that must be a lie. So everyone ignored it. Everyone laughed at them. Everyone said they're fools. Until the system came crashing down, they were proved right, and they made billions and billions of dollars off of it because they knew exactly what was going to happen. Did they know the timing? No. Could they predict the timing? No. But they knew eventually it would all come tumbling down. The same thing is happening right now. We've been looking at all the data. We've been looking at what's been going on way before the mainstream media was out there now saying, real estate's not doing well. Trump's numbers, they're not really the real numbers of the economy and how it's doing. They're doing that now because they're trying to create a narrative. They're trying to build something which it's a dead end for them right now. They're too late to the party here. We've been looking at it for a very long time, and we understand what the economy is doing and what the Fed was trying to do, what the deep state was trying to do, and now everything has turned around since Trump came into office. And we can see that again. I will say it again. Andrew Jackson is hanging on his wall. Yes, he's the one who campaigned against bringing down the central bank. And here we are today. And Trump is continually out there trying to educate the people about the Fed. Why they are such a threat. Why he doesn't know what they're doing because they're independent. This is all for a specific reason, and the reason is the plan. So we are going to go through this transition. For many, it's not going to be easy. For some, it's going to be easier than others, and some it's going to be a horrible, horrible time, because everything is about to change. So you need to be ready and prepared for this transition.